Did you know that if you go blank in high-stakes speaking situations, if you can't think on your feet, or if you feel like your thoughts are kind of unorganized when you have to speak without preparation, there's a really simple solution that can help you. They're called communication frameworks, and these are basically just like a roadmap in your mind that tell you what to say next and where to go and how to wrap it all up so that it is nicely in a little package like a gift. However, I encountered a problem. I found that a lot of the communication frameworks that are being talked about online, such as PrEP or the 3-2-1 framework or STAR, they're really great for certain specific applications, but they don't really work in all types of situations. So about 3 years ago, I went on a mission to find a framework that could work really, really well for basically any situation. I watched 100 podcasts, I saw the way that these guys were answering their questions, and I found that many people follow this kind of formula. So I started practicing what I call the narrow framework, and it improved my ability to speak impromptu. Then I started teaching it to my clients, and they also saw these benefits as well. So in this video, I'm going to share this framework with you. I'm going to show you an example, and I'm going to show you how you can actually practice it and make this into a skill that you have forever. By the way, I have a full course on this, and I also have all the practice activities that you'll ever need. You can get access to that for free. So see the link below for a link to my online community called Oracy Club. So the reason that this is called the narrow framework is because it really focuses on one key point, and you can focus on 2 key points if you want, but it's designed to really go into depth on one. And in an impromptu speaking situation, and even in a short speech, it's still really good to just focus on one key point and extract real depth from it. So let's talk about the 5 components. They are context, main idea, details and examples, summary, and reflection. Now, including all 5 components makes it really suitable for a more formal type of Q&A format or a more formal discussion. So things like job interviews or podcast interviews, maybe when you're being asked a question in a meeting and you've had to prepare a little bit. But you can actually trim these down. So the most essential parts are actually just the main idea, details and examples, and summary. And sometimes we don't even use the summary in a discussion. It just becomes main idea and details and examples. So the best thing about this framework is that it is so adaptable depending on the situation. And today we're going to focus on the full version, and you can hear me give an example of that as well. So first, let's talk about context. Context is where you can basically define key terms in either the question or the topic. You can explore ideas around the topic, and you can also share any kind of background information relevant to the topic as well. It's also nice to take a long pause and also to reframe the question as well if you feel like the question isn't something that you can actually answer. These are all the types of things that we do in context. Context is really, really important because it gives you a little bit of extra time to be able to not only explore the topic, but think about which key point is going to be best for you, especially if you're talking in an unprepared situation. Often the best answers we hear to questions are prepared and practiced. It'll be someone who has answered the question maybe 10 times or 20 times or 100 times, and that's why they can give such an amazing answer to a question where it appears like they're unprepared. So by exploring context, we buy ourselves a little bit more time so that we can then give a better answer. We might choose, instead of choosing an average key point, we might choose a great key point, or instead of a great key point, we might choose an excellent key point. It just gives us that little bit more time to make that decision, and that can be really, really helpful. Next is the main idea. So in the main idea, we often want to use language from either the topic or the specific question we're being asked, and we want to put that in the main idea, and the main idea should only be 1 to 2 sentences. The main idea behind the main idea is that if someone left your conversation and they wanted to tell someone else about what you guys talked about, they'd be able to use that to describe it. Next are the details and the examples. So this is where we expand on the main idea, we give reasons, and then we also give examples. This is also a great opportunity for storytelling. And this might be hypothetical storytelling in terms of a case study. It could be personal storytelling. It could be third person storytelling where you're telling a story about someone named George or someone that's not you. But the storytelling part becomes a great opportunity to really connect to the people you're talking to and give an example that they can really absorb. We might use things like analogies. We might use facts and statistics. It really depends on the question that you're answering. Next is the summary. The summary should essentially be restating the main idea. We want to use language or keywords that we used in the main idea in the summary so that it's extra clear. And so, you're hearing this question, you get the main idea that has the same keywords, and then you get the summary that also has the same keywords. And that allows the person to really walk away with an understanding of what you talked about. we might expand a little bit more because we might be summarizing some of the things that we talked about in the details and the examples. And then the last step is the reflection, which is really evaluating the significance of the information that has been shared. And we often talk about like the past or the future in this sort of section. That's why it's called a reflection, because it will be a little bit more personal, and then we'll make these references to, the past or the future. And that is essentially the narrow framework. So now I'm going to show you a quick example of me answering a question impromptu. It's not going to be a perfect answer, but I'm going to use the narrow framework to help guide my thinking and to expand on the answers and make sure that I have an answer that sounds pretty good. So the question, what's your approach to handling difficult clients? This is a very good question, a really great question. So I think that my approach will be different to other people's because of my work experience and also because of the work that I do. So my background is in like hospitality during my university years, and then mostly in teaching and education, and then obviously as a coach now. So I believe that my approach to handling difficult clients is really about trying to help them solve the problem, because the reason why they might be considered to be a difficult client is probably because they need my help and they have poor communication skills, or in the case of a classroom, they have poor self-regulation skills, or in the case of hospitality, working in a restaurant, they don't have, the dish that they're looking for, the food is bad. So I guess my approach to dealing with difficult clients is to essentially help them solve the problem, and that's like the default for me. That could also be like an ego thing. Maybe I don't want to fail and I just want to help them solve the problem, and maybe that's why that is part of my approach. But I think that any difficult client, especially in the space of speaking communication, it's not that they're like a bad person or a terrible person, or they're trying to like hurt people's feelings. It's just simply that they lack the skill set to be able to really help them be a less difficult client. And I'm sure that if I do work with them, then I'll be able to help them to succeed more in whatever it is that they do. So there's my impromptu answer to this question. This is a very difficult question, and I think it is the first time I've ever actually answered this question. So I think with a little bit more planning and preparation, I could answer it better, and I could probably give a little bit more insight into my real approach. But if I'm unprepared and this is all that I can do in that moment, then it's completely fine for me to answer in this way, and it becomes much more organized than if I didn't have a framework. I would have just sort of explored random ideas and then maybe just like come back to the question. So if you want to get better at answering difficult questions on the spot, you want to be better at impromptu speaking, I highly, highly recommend learning the narrow framework and getting that map in your mind. The way that I speak, I can see it in my mind, and it just allows me to just move very smoothly between the different sections, making sure that I've got a nice balanced answer.